Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So, a recent study of 400 men aged between 50 and 69 years old, performed in the UK, showed that MRI screening performed better than blood tests for PSA and ultrasound, without leading to unnecessary biopsies. And that has paved the way for a transformed trial, which is going to look into this in more detail. So I wanted to explore our panelists' thought on this study and what this might lead to with regards to the future of prostate imaging. So I'll pass over to Anthony.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the invitation, Jenna, and it's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you about prostate cancer screening, something that I'm really passionate about and have worked on now for about 7 years. I'm Anthony Ricks. I'm CEO at Lucida Medical. I have a PhD in artificial intelligence, so I'm not a medical doctor, so please do take these opinions as being from a vendor, not a healthcare professional. I think firstly, let's do a brief recap on the facts about prostate cancer, why it's important. This is the most common cancer in men in the developed world. 1.5 million diagnosed each year, 400,000 deaths. Very, very wide variation in pathways and outcomes. In the United States, when there was extensive prostate cancer screening using the PSA blood test until 2012, the outcomes were staggeringly good. As low as 4% of men diagnosed having metastatic cancer. Now in the United States, since PSA screening is no longer mandated, that METS rate's gone up to 8%. So significantly worse outcomes here. In Scotland, I did my PhD in Edinburgh, where Blackford are based. It's 35% of men are first diagnosed at stage 4 with prostate cancer, which is a total tragedy. And it's hard because this is one of the most curable of all cancers, with a near 100% cure rate if it's found at stages 1 or 2. So why do we have these challenges? There are the controversies about screening, which I'll talk about, but ultimately screening is the only way we get these metastatic disease rates down. Underdiagnosis has been a challenge. About 10 to 15% of prostate cancers are missed at MRI. And overdiagnosis and overtreatment have also been a problem. And this is an area where I think artificial intelligence brings particular benefits in specificity. But if we overtreat prostate cancer, you don't want to have your prostate removed. About 30% of men experience long-term sexual incompetence or incontinence. These are pretty life-changing symptoms, especially if you're, say, in your 50s. So why do we have those challenges, and why is the Reimagine study that Jenna was referring to so exciting? We've been using the wrong tests and treatments, frankly, in prostate cancer. In particular, in the United States, still about 50% of men with prostate cancer don't have an MRI, don't get a chance to benefit from the technologies that we're working on, go straight to biopsy. And this is like a game of battleships. And unsurprisingly, only about 50% of cancers are actually found through these random targeted biopsies. There's frankly a challenge of ignorance in the medical profession. I get really annoyed in the United Kingdom because people cite 20-year-old studies in prostate cancer as a reason not to do prostate cancer screening, but the world has changed. The diagnosis and the treatments are very much better. But ultimately, we need to improve the specificity and sensitivity of what we're doing. We know that there are those issues that I referred to before. So, how can we do better? There have been a raft of fantastic studies, many of them led from the United Kingdom, Precision, Prostagram, and most recently Reimagine. And Reimagine was really exciting. They recruited men aged 50 to 70. 10% of them were found with clinically significant prostate cancer, the one we want to treat, not the low grade. And of those, half had a PSA level below 3. So would not have been picked up in the standard European PSA screening programs. And those levels of detection are super exciting. And that's now informed the Transform study, which is a 15-year randomized controlled trial, which will build on the on those results and actually model a few different arms of PSA-led, MRI-led, or polygenomic risk score-led screening to see if in 15 years' time we can really put this argument to bed. I've been working in prostate cancer diagnosis and screening for 7 years, as I mentioned. You know, our part to play here is that we've developed Pi AI software for analyzing MRI images prior to biopsy in prostate cancer. We've got world-leading sensitivity of 95% at a specificity of 67%. And as I mentioned, specificity is really important in screening to get harms down. And that's on real-world, multi-center, multi-vendor, sequential patient data. This level of accuracy it compares very well with experts. And in fact, we've now got studies showing that an average radiologist using our AI performs at the level of an expert. So how can AI now maybe help us develop better prostate cancer screening and address the problems that we were talking about? First, let's look at diagnosis. We install our Pi software to run automatically. It processes a hospital's complete workload of prostate MRI images. That means that you can then use the AI scores directly to prioritize patients, and that's actually shot right to the top of the interest list, especially in the United Kingdom, where waiting times are a priority, but frankly anywhere where radiology is overloaded. If clinical detection is a priority, then you can use AI to maximize sensitivity, and that's particularly relevant where you've got patients with a clinical history or with known risk factors. And if minimizing overdiagnosis or minimizing cost is a priority, then you can use the AI to help reduce avoidable biopsies. But the cool thing is that, you know, as I mentioned, the data shows that we can enable less experienced radiologists to be reporting at the level of experts. And that's in particular of value to give reassurance with negative cases. So I talked about Transform and about these new studies. How important are they? Well, the European Union is now mandating regional scale pilots of prostate cancer screening on that model. And this is delivering already a huge amount of evidence and new studies like Stockholm 3, Göteborg, and Probase. If you're not familiar with them, do find out about them. Watch those studies. This is showing us the way for how to optimize these new screening programs to minimize harm, minimize costs, but deliver the best possible patient outcomes. And I'm personally confident that the evidence is now there to show how we can create a new prostate cancer screening pathway based on AI, based on PSA, based on MRI. So first you'd start with a PSA test with a low threshold. It makes sense. It can rule out perhaps half of men who frankly have a very low lifetime risk of prostate cancer. Then you do an MRI and use AI. And you use AI in a screening setting especially to improve specificity, because ruling out the men who don't need investigation is crucial to cut harm and cost. And we're aiming to detect primarily Gleason grade group 2 or higher cancer, which we know will benefit from treatment, and minimize the detection of grade group 1 and lower. And crucially, AI will help enable us to make this process fast, efficient, cost-effective, increase the productivity of radiologists, because we know we don't have enough of them, and we might have maybe a 5 times increase in workload. By the way, there's a ton more money to be made because there's going to be a lot more screening cases to process. And if AI can help with minimizing the biopsies that drive cost and harm, we can actually give men with the right diagnosis, and those who have cancer the best possible overdiagnosis, the best possible outcomes. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. If you want to find out more about what we're doing, come over to the Lucida Medical booth that way. Come and see my co-founder, Professor Evis Sala, on Wednesday at 9:30 in the prostate track, where she's presenting the latest results that show we can achieve as high as 90% specificity, totally unprecedented levels of specificity in prostate cancer diagnosis using our AI. And we'll be very happy to talk more about this. Back to you, Jenna, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I'll pass over to Randy to hear his thoughts as a follow-up. Thank you.
Well, Anthony laid it out very well. I don't think I could add anything to that. The problem is worldwide. I've got most of my experience here in the United States market, and we compound that problem. We've got a couple of elephants in the room, if you will, in terms of adopting technology. And it's been my experience in bringing new technology to radiology for over 25 years. there's a slow adaptation. There's always the industry leaders. There's this mass following, and then the last ones. So, what do we have to do to get the believers, if you will, on board? Now, we can sit here and quote our performance metrics in terms of bot image. Our prostate ID program was early on the market with these guys. We have about a 97% sensitivity and 72% specificity today, and that's all running with biparametric MRI, non-contrast. So I'm going to back up for a second, because the initial response I had to the question from Jenna was, it's about time. We're way late in bringing MRI to the forefront of being the advanced screening modality for prostate cancer. You think about what's being done today in the United States, again, I'll say, is the man has an elevated PSA, they have symptoms, they have whatever family history, and they're sent to their urologist. 9 times out of 10, the urologist is going to do some type of a biopsy. And a lot of times I call it the blind biopsy. A block between the legs, 12 needles, 20 needles on a random pattern. And you stole my term, by the way, battleship. Yeah. It's playing battleship with a man's health. And well, I'm an engineer. Apologize for being a geek. You do a prostate the size of a large lemon. You put 20 needles that are 0.5 millimeter diameter, 5 millimeter sample size. You're sampling 3% of the volume of the organ. So please, doctor, don't tell me that I'm cancer-free if you didn't hit a cancer the size of a pea inside of that lemon. Okay? It's not good it's not good medicine. I've been trying to promote that we change that paradigm for some time. Now, the other thing that's done more frequently today, and I really thank our radiology colleagues for pushing hard on this, is because we are now getting more MRIs before that horrible, blind, ineffective biopsy. And that MRI is at least providing a guidance tool. Great, that's a fantastic start. But there's another elephant in the room, and that is radiologists are overworked. Or underpaid, but I don't believe that. But they can't possibly specialize in every organ, in every cancer in the human body with a number of different modalities to learn as well. I'm sorry, they're human. There's a limited capacity. So what that says in a kind way is that the majority of radiologists are not very good at interpreting prostate cancer from an MRI. Fact, and it's in the literature all over the place. It's just not well known to the public. Well, we're here now at a medical show. We can be honest about it. It needs to improve. I'm a prostate cancer survivor. I've been through the process. I turned down a radical prostatectomy when I had a single lesion in my organ, because that's the only thing that this medical institution could offer. Okay? So we have to change the paradigm, and what Anthony and I are talking about is we have the solution. Bot Image has a very unique FDA clearance. We offer the 5 pillars of prostate cancer, and that, number 1 is we're cleared for detection. 2, we're cleared for diagnosis. 3, once we detect that lesion, we are cleared for actually segmenting the margin of the lesion. We're telling you how big it is, how bad it is. That's number 4. It's got a risk classification on each one of those lesions. So we're telling the physicians in the community, this one is very problematic and this one maybe not. Helps you identify the primary lesion. Now think of that. And you've got a map that's forming. Number 5 is we were also uniquely cleared for screening. We did that in 2019. And yet the adoption rate is extremely slow, because again, you have to make the radiology community believers in this. And now we've got the even larger elephant in the room. who's paying? In the United States, you've got to have a CPT code to bill for something. Doesn't matter whether it's better medicine or not for the patient. If the doc can't get paid for it, they're really not that interested, unfortunately. Well, we solved that problem too, because recently we were proven that we could get reimbursed for the sixth thing that we do, which is represent each lesion in its three-dimensional form inside of a translucent three-dimensional rendition of the prostate. Urologists love it because a lot of the old folks in the crowd still doing cognitive fusion, they've got beautiful targets that they can align just cognitively with their ultrasound. And yet we're also working on the future, which is taking our outputs and adopting them to the instrumentation that urologists are using for highly targeting specific lesions. So we're trying to solve all of these problems at once, technically, financially, incentive-wise, education-wise, to get the entire medical community to change. So the last one, where we need to partner up with all of our physician friends, vendors alike, everybody, is to convince the NCCN guideline people. That's this panel that establishes the medical care process, and we need to change that process because it's about 15 years old. And I, for one, as a patient, don't want to follow it at all after my experience, because I would be sitting here wearing a diaper, okay? And I'm trying to be passionate about this because that is the problem, and we have to change it. And we're giving the tools that everyone needs to make that happen. So I don't need to go on and on. This man laid out all those other problems very well, and come and see Bot Image. Our website's pronounced there, and we'd love to give demonstrations. We hook our system up through a VPN secure tunnel. So there is no connectivity other than that one connection to your PACS system, PACS to PACS. 1 hour of IT time and you're up and running. There's no extra instrumentation. You simply push that study to us, and in 5 minutes, you get a real-time diagnosis back, appended as a post-process series to that patient's MRI. Can't beat it. You could still be doing that patient on the table, doing your T1 whole pelvis, look for Mets, whatever. You're going to get your results back. But what a beautiful screening tool. 10, 15-minute non-contrast exam, you get 94% sensitivity, specificity. That's what we're providing. So let's go change the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of passion here for prostate screening, which we expected, but keen to get any thoughts or questions from the audience while we've got a few moments. Does anyone have any comments about the future of prostate screening or any of the tools that are available today? Oh, yeah, we have one question at the front here, yeah.
Hi, Horace Boyko. I practice at the VA Southern Nevada healthcare system. We're looking to try to take and start doing prostate MR within our VA. Everything goes out to community care. The challenge is that the radiologists are not receptive to thinking about developing a prostate MR imaging program and thinking about AI. How do we change that mindset?
So I think here we have to treat them as our friends and allies and take them with us. And one of the things that we've assembled within Lucida Medical is we've recruited some of the key opinion leaders who are the international experts in how to do high-quality prostate imaging and reporting. And so we will work with centers to make sure that their scanners are adequate, make sure that the protocols are right, train the radiologists and bring them with us. The nice thing, frankly, actually about the technologies that both BotImage and Lucida are developing is that we can give that confidence that the less experienced radiologist who's only doing maybe 100 cases a year, which is not enough to be at expert level, we can lift them to that expert level. And taking them with you is really, I think, the only way. But if we can do that, the outcomes really do follow. And as Randy and I have both explained, there's a very strong patient benefit, but in particular in the context of a payer-provider system like the VA, actually we can probably save you a lot of money. So this is really something that we should look at and work on.
Yeah, very, very well said. Again, overworked and underpaid. They've got to read so many things all the time. So we're talking about convincing them that there's a tool here. When they look at the colorized overlay from either one of these platforms, it's an immediate attention getter to say, let's focus on these. And users of our program are often quoted saying, I no longer spend the 20 minutes that I used to spend reading a prostate, and I know they're tough. I've got 100 CME credits myself. I've read 2,000 cases, probably more than any physician I know from coast to coast, because I come from the flyover country as well. And you know, they're spread out in the rural areas. The veterans are getting subpar care. They have to travel forever, and then they're going to a place that has a radiologist that's read 20 prostates in the last year. Of course I wouldn't have confidence if I was that reader. We're trying to show them we've got a tool here. You can treat it like your expert friend sitting next to you. The pressure is off, right? With our reports, they can look at this and say yes or no, I agree with this. The issue of liability comes up, and we say, look, physicians are still primarily responsible for a diagnosis. That is true. And until the Food and Drug Administration changes, it will be that way, and the AMA. However, when you show them those results, that we're going to take you from beginner level to expert level in a very, very short period of time, train you just like we're talking about, then it makes it too easy not to. I mean, you play on the human side. What would you have done, doctor, if it were you? You want an expert or not?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the interesting discussion. It sounds like the future is exciting and to watch this space. So please do either stay behind and ask questions to our panel or go and find them on their booths, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to talk to you more about the issue. Thank you very much for joining us.